Hi guys, welcome to episode 33 of my Warhammer Mortal Realms review series. Coming to you on a Monday, unfortunately. My local shop had a significant amount of trouble getting hold of this, so I wasn't able to get hold of it until Friday, and I was working all day Saturday and Sunday, so I am sorry for the delay, guys. Like I say, my local shop didn't get their delivery. They got it in a later delivery, and I'm bringing it to you as quickly as I can this week. Which hopefully means we've got another video in 2 days, which is cool. And I've got this week off, which is nippy. Try and see if I can knock some videos out there. Right, let's open this thing up. Let's see what we got. This is coming with two goodies, which is GW's texture tool. I often just use things like trimmed lollipop sticks and stuff like that just to flatten it, but this is actually better. This thing, I couldn't find its individual price on GW's website. For some reason it was only in bundles, but it's got this bit and this bit, which are both flexible. This one you can see is slightly flat, this one you can see is slightly rounded, and the point of it is to let you spread mud or texture paints such as Stolen Mud, which is the other thing we got this week, onto bases. It's also fantastic for applying liquid green stuff to things as well. As I couldn't find the exact price, most places seem to be selling it for round about £5. Probably means it's a few pennies more if you get it direct from GW. But it is a useful little tool. You can scratch your nose with it, things like that. You get it right out of there. Yeah, basic stuff. The other thing we got, I don't know, I'm shaking it, it's not going to shake, is Sterling Mud. Now I'm just going to open this up for you guys so you can see that it's basically a slimy mud-like substance. It is what it says on the tin. It's basically a bit like if you mixed a very fine sand or baking soda with brown paint, but we're a little bit more towards the squidgy side. Yeah, added a little bit more liquid than absolutely necessary. It looks great. It takes dry brushing well. It is quite expensive if you're basing an entire army. This pot will do quite a few models, but yeah, a lot of us use things like PVA and baking soda to give you a squidgy effect, and then you can use that as snow or paint it brown. I've got a video on the channel if you want to look it up. And whilst you're paying more for the components than you would for a pot, they'll do an entire army and then the next 3 armies as well. So if you're doing a few models, it's fantastic. If you're doing like an elite army, or if you're doing something like, for example, the Stormcast, where you're just looking for a few, where you're going to have a small model count, it's actually really good, and it saves you a lot of time and effort of making your own basing material. If you're doing a ton of armies, you might want to consider putting that time and effort in, because it will save you a bit of money. A lot of GW's technicals really come into that sort of philosophy, in that you can do them cheaper per model because you can get the bits and mix them and make them yourself, as modelers have been doing for years. But you end up usually making enough for 1,000 models for like maybe 10-15 quid, whereas this is only like about £4.75. So if you're only doing like 2 models, if you're only doing like 10, I think you might be able to spread this to 15 models. You might have spread it to 20. I'm not entirely sure. I very rarely go through packs because I've got tons of stuff, tons of my own stuff, which I prefer because it's my own stuff. But you can do quite a lot of models. You could probably get at least 20 models out of this, using it to a reasonable level. That's dependent on the size of the bases. I'm just thinking standard 32mm bases. You can probably get a good amount of models out of this. If you were planning to do like hundreds of models or dozens of different armies and have them all based the same, say for example, because that's how your battle board's based, then there are other ways of doing it which can save you money. Specifically, if you've been basing your battle board, you can do it the same way you based your battle board, whereas obviously this wouldn't be any good for basing a battle board because it's not going to cover anywhere near enough area. I'm just going to turn the screen for a second. You can see here, I've just been doing a small mini battle board for me, and that there is sand and PVA for the texture, and then there's like some speckle paint which I got from GW, B&Q, that's one. Speckle paint which I got from B&Q, not GW. I wish GW did speckle paints like that, that'd be amazing. So because I've done it roughly that way, I'm probably going to base my Age of Sigmar army the same way I've done that to go on that base. But I've got enough material to base 5 Sigma armies, because that is PVA glue and sand done in a layered fashion. There are loads of ways you can do PVA glue and sand. You can mix it together. What I actually tend to do for my battle boards is a layer of sand, paint PVA on, put sand on, wait for that to dry, paint PVA on, put sand on. So I get basically a few layers of like PVA sand cement. What some people do is they pre-mix it and then just smear it over with plaster spreaders. Either way is good, and it gives you a very strong base. But this stuff does really look like meat. It has a really squidgy, yucky feel, and for the price, it's fantastic. If you're only doing a few models, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it looks good. Okay, so let's get to the magazine. Okay, first off, we have another one of these fancy little fold-outs, which are pretty good. This one is telling us about the lands of Dust and Bone, the Ossiarch Empire. You've got places of interest such as the Triptych upon the plains of Praetoris. Colossal statues of Ossiarch warrior kings loom over the landscape. And then we've got Greedmouth. This portal to the realm of beasts has been heavily fortified by the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Through its yawning realm gate, their armies have launched several incursions into Gur, returning with a haul of bone with which to bolster their forces. Which is a scary thought in and of itself. They're going to get monster bones. What the heck are they yawning at that? Yeah, this is the Ossiarch Empire, which is going to be somewhere in the realm of death. Most of this, you've got what's his name? Catacross there, and you've got another thing, a brief explanation of the Empire of Bones there, and for some reason, at random, Archael. And explains who he is, ever chosen Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse and Lord of the Varanspire. His name inspires such fear. That's my foot! No eating my foot, either of you. Sorry, dogs are playing with each other and one of them just decided to chew on my foot. It also goes on to explain some of his attitudes towards Nagash. So before the Necroquake, Archaon's attention had been focused upon defeating the forces of Azir. He saw Sigmar's greatest threat, and he won many great victories against the Stormcast Eternals. The aftermath of the Necroquake, however, saw a reversal of Archaon's fortunes when the Soul Wars broke out. His successes during the Age of Chaos came back to haunt him. The slaughter his armies inflicted provided thousands of cursed souls to no armies. These, together along with the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, take a terrible toll upon his forces in Shyish. Now Catacross's legions march through the Endgate and into the 8 points. Archaon returns with a vengeance in mind, which is quite good. It's kind of showing the importance of multiple factions, in that if any faction rises and starts to push, because they end up having to push out against loads of other factions, it means that every other faction will dogpile on them. It isn't Sigmar versus Archaon whilst trying to handle Nagash, whilst trying to deal with whoever else he's fighting. It's Sigmar versus Archaon, but Archaon's also, both Sigmar and Archaon are focused on the more immediate threat, which at this point is Nagash and his undead armies. So it balances it out slightly. So that's cool. It provides a counterpoint to the Nagash is going to rule everything and everyone's going to bow before him thing. And I'd imagine the Skaven are taking advantage of that too. Okay, so let's dive into the magazine. Obviously signed by our own Vengeful Chaos Lord himself, Ian. First page covers the forces of order, with some great pictures there. In the eternal battle, the forces of order will always stand against the darkness of chaos. They are a shield wall protecting civilization against madness and misrule, etc., etc. It's got some more description of Stormcast Eternals, and there's got another description of the Seraphon, who are another member of the forces of order. It's worth noting that the Forces of Order are made up of multiple actual forces that work together. You've got the Sylvaneth, who are also who are part of the Forces of Life, but also part of the Forces of Order, and the Daughters of Cain, who are the old Dark Elves and absolutely bad guys, but they're bad guys who believe in the order of things and believe in the universe not falling into chaos. So that's pretty cool. It's quite a bit in this one. Next we've got the Mortarch of Night, Manfred von Carstein. Manfred is one of the few people, for a given definition of person, to survive from the old world. He was an incredibly powerful immortal vampire who basically terrified the Empire when Nagash was mostly kind of a legend in the distance. And when Nagash turned up, he basically just went, right, you'll work for me. And some of the vampires went, no, we are powerful and we shall fight you. And Nagash squished them. Manfred went, we work for you. I think Manfred actually fought as well, but before he got destroyed, he went, oh yeah, I'll work for you. And Nagash went, you're a psychotic bastard, I have a use for you, and made him the Mortarch of Night. I'll read the blurb here. A ruthless general and master of necromancy, Manfred von Carstein is Nagash's Mortarch of Night. He has led armies to war for millennia and destroyed countless kingdoms in Nagash's name. If you want your crypt ghouls and your skeletons and your kind of old-fashioned undead army, Manfred's probably the guy you want, well, at least one of the guys you want to go for. He is classic Middle European undead skeleton zombie werewolf commanding monster. Although I don't think they've got any werewolves in the undead armies, which they used to have. It's a shame there. He goes on to say how he was very carefully picked and he's entrusted with missions that require great cunning or the mind of a military genius. Yet despite such talent and record for success, Manfred von Carstein is a being with ever-shifting loyalties. Basically, he, like most vampires, he was out for himself, and he still really is. Nagash doesn't trust him as far as he can comfortably spit him. Then again, Nagash doesn't trust anybody. But in Manfred's case, that's a well-justified lack of trust. In all fairness, if you ever read Nagash's backstory, the whole not trusting anybody is fairly solidly explained in his past, because almost everyone's tried to betray him at one point, with one notable exception. He tolerates Manfred because few beings in the mortal realms are as ruthlessly capable. Basically, von Carstein is one of his most effective generals. He's one of the people he can send off, and he knows the guy will get the job done. That's why he tolerates the fact that Carstein doesn't like him, doesn't want to work for him, and would rather be killing him and ruling in his stead. I think also Nagash trusts the fact that he's far too powerful for von Carstein to actually ever take out. Which, who knows, could be a mistake on his part. We've got a picture of the monster and the thing he's riding there. What is it? Geistvor. Unholy Blade drinks the souls of its victims, using their stolen energy to empower the Mortarch's spells. Armour of Tempelhof. Manfred's armour is a relic of a long-forgotten age, and it resonates with evil power. And then you've got Ashigoth, Gorger on the Meek. He's on Carstein's Dread Abyssal Mount, and that's frankly cool. Let's have a look. Manfred, the Legion of Night. Manfred von Carstein commands the Legion of Night. Fear and confusion are Carstein's favourite weapons, and his legion fights without honour or mercy. It states that it's made of... It kills people and raises them as undead horrors to devour those they love, but it doesn't explain exactly what it is or give us specifics of where it comes from. But I'm sure if you want to go and pay money for the battle scrolls for the undead and the Forces of Death, it'll be in there. We've then got the Mortal Realms Part 2, which we had a similar one a few months back. Basically, brief descriptions of the realm. This one we've got Akshi, Chamon, and Ulgu. Akshi is made up of many drifting continents that landmasses once joined by the same oceans. Chamon, the realm of metal, is is not a set of plates, continents and islands, but rather a dizzying variety of metallic domains that hang in the air, linked to each other by portals and magical bonds. And then Ulgu is the place of secrets, riddles and gloom, existing in a permanent state of shadow. This is a land of twisted reason and mind-bending illusion. So that's pretty cool. And then the next page, we've got Haish. Haish is eternally bright. I believe that's the realm of light. A place of light that can bring illumination as easily as blindness. Then we've got Gur, the realm of beasts, near ending, string of jagged continents. Here the rib cages of giant monsters litter over its open plains. And finally you've got the realm of chaos, which is kind of a realm but kind of not. It says that here. The home of the dark gods is not a mortal realm, but a vile, terrifying reality that mirrors mortal emotions. It is linked to the realms by corrupted realm gates, and it can invade reality wherever chaos is strong. So that's just a sea of madness. Next, we've got a basic description here of the daughters of Cain, or the Dark Elves, or whatever you want to call them. The daughters of Cain despise no foe more than Slaanesh. In the gloomy wilderness of Ulgu, the warband of these murderous elves hunt down a pack of the Dark Prince's demonic followers. And we've got a nice little story there to give you some feel and some flavour of what they are. And if you look at the daughters of Cain and the demonic followers, they actually do look very similar. Yes, there's blood, Maxie, be quiet. So that's pretty cool. They're both nasty and vicious. Next, we've got how to paint, and this one covers texturing bases. It's using some of the skulls and the Stirland mud. It's stating that you should be careful when clipping the skulls and hold them with the fingers of your hand. That can be a bit dangerous when you're using clippers. One of the things I tend to do is get my cutting mat and put a lump of glue on there, and then I'll just stick it, blue tack even, or white tack. Stick it to that, and then just sort of very holding on, just holding onto the top of it gently, just sticky stuff. Be quiet. Just clip. It's like blue tack on its way. Clip it that way, because that way you can keep your fingers further away from the clipping blades, so you don't clip your fingers. And some of these skulls and some of these jaws are very fine. If you do try and hold them, there's a good chance you might slip and cut yourself. Another option I've seen people do is put it on a cutting mat and put a plastic bag over the top, and you hold the plastic bag and you clip it, and that way when it does ping off, it pings into the plastic bag. I think that's a bit awkward, to be honest, but my mate swears by it. And it says gather your paints. This shows you some techniques for painting the bases of the models and the tombstones and the like, as well as dry brushing them. And then it sort of suggests putting on skulls and some methods of painting them or gluing them. Here you can see they've got the bloodlet skull, which they're painting red. And then it goes on to the base, and it shows you just like smearing. Well, it says using the basing tool, cover it in a thin layer. Make sure the models are attached to the bases so you can paint right up to their feet. The cool thing about mud is if you get it on their feet, then that's what happens to mud. That's totally realistic. You can be as messy as you like. I know quite a few people that match the colours up and dry brush onto the feet and up to the legs before painting it on, so it looks like mud spatter. Another thing you can do is get a toothbrush, dip it in a brown, dip it in a reasonably matching brown, and just spring it back to give spatters of mud up the model. And if you don't think they'll go spatters of mud belong up a model, you've never fought a battle in mud. Next, we've got some rules here. How to choose. Oh, sorry, it's also painting there. One of the last things it does is paint the rim there, and it uses dried bark. I personally use black, but that's because I actually want the bases to stand out against anything I'm using them on. The base at the top matches, but I like having that black ring around because it makes it just that little bit easier to find your models. Next, we've got a rule set. How to choose a general. It explains how you pick your generals. Storm Custom players finish setting up all the units. After the last unit is set up, they choose the Lord Arcanum as general. So you set all the models up, and then you choose from your potential generals. So that guy is my general. I think it's probably to help hide who your general is, so your opponent doesn't just wail on him at once. In Age of War Animation, select a single model in your army to be your general. Any hero model can use command abilities, but many of them are more powerful or have a larger radius when activated by your general. So it is usually a good idea to pick a hero as your general. So that's pretty cool. Next, triumphs. Triumphs are bonuses that can be used in the game. If your force won a major victory in its last battle, many battle plans have rules for winning a major or minor victory, but not all battle plans will include them. D6. So you roll a D6 if you won a major victory in the previous battle, which either playing against the same player or on the honor system amongst your mates, depending on how you do it, or if you're just playing one-off games, you might not even bother. You might just go, okay, we'll start from scratch again. Or if both of you won major victories in your last battle, both of you might get to roll on it. I don't know. You guys decide. But it's a D6 roll. 1 to 2 is inspired. You can pick a unit and say it's inspired and reroll failed to hit rolls for that unit until the end of the phase. Bloodthirsty. Once a battle, a friendly unit is selected to shoot or fight. When a friendly unit is selected to shoot or fight, you can say it's bloodthirsty. You reroll wounds to the end of that phase. Indomitable. You reroll saves to the end of that phase. So there's 3 cool things. It's not going to be battle changing unless you use it very cleverly, but it is going to help you in a dire situation. I'd always worry about when you get a bonus for winning. I think kind of like you should get bonuses for winning, particularly in campaigns, but at the same time you do have to be careful, because generally the better players win, and if you give the better player an advantage, generally he's going to win again. So particularly if you get any advantages that stack, any extra things that you're getting because you won the last battle, you need to make sure that doesn't result in the better player winning because he's slightly better than the other guy, and people are better and worse, and luck does affect it as well. But a lot of the time, the better player will win. Amongst my mates, I was one of the better generals, so I tended to win more often than I lose. And when we did things like campaigns, you could notice that the advantages were stacking up with me as opposed to some of my other friends. In the other, there were other friends in my friend group played who were better than me, and the advantages were stacking up more with them. But certainly the good players versus the bad players, if you weren't careful, it meant that the players who already weren't quite as good, either because the players themselves weren't quite as good, or sometimes because they picked an army that wasn't as good in the specific situation, or they just picked an army that wasn't very up to date. This is an old fantasy battle. And some of the armies could be left languishing without updates for a long time, meaning that compared to newer armies who'd had more love from GW, they were nowhere near as good. You could often find that it meant that they started with a difference, and as games progressed, the difference just got bigger, and it got less fun for these guys, and frankly less fun for the guys winning, because they had so many advantages that being anybody who was reasonably self-aware knew that it was not them necessarily winning. Their advantages were having a significant portion, and when you're playing for fun as opposed to to win, that's less fun. So it's not a challenge. Next, we've got the battle rounds, covering the hero phase where you play command abilities. We've got the turn sequence here. Hero phase, cast spells. Movement phase, move units. Shooting phase, attack with missile weapons. Charge phase, charge units. I don't know if we could have figured that one out by ourselves, guys. Hey, combat phase is when you pile in an attack with melee weapons, and battle shock phase is basically when you test the morale and see if you guys are going to run away. Again, I'm not going to go through all the rules because there are too many of them, but they're covering the battle phase here. They're covering how to keep your distance, and they're showing you the nifty little tool they've got. If you've got a ruler or a plastic ruler, or then it's easy enough to use. Tape measures easy enough. I've even seen some people cut range measures out of cardboard just so they're easy to stick in amongst the models and do that. You've got the shooting phase, which we're covering in the combat phase, and again, this is a complete set of rules, so it goes in your rulebook. The fundamental rules of Age of Sigmar haven't changed since it came out. We're on, I think, the second version of the General's Handbook, and they put new rules in, but the basic core rules haven't really changed. The main changes they've made tend to be the more complex bits and pieces. Next, we've got The Dead Forest, which is a nice story to get you in the mood for the next battle. This battle is forging a path. Stormcast Eternals must secure a route to the ruins of Summer Song. In their path lies a force of Nighthaunts. It falls to the Lord Exorcist to banish the Geists and secure the forest. Forces you've got are 2 Dreadblade Harrows, 15 Chain Rasps, 3 Spirit Hosts, 1 Lord Exorcist, a Prosecutor, 4 Liberators, and 3 Castigators. So reasonably small forces there. You've got your objective line there going across, and your 3 objectives. Your 2 sides, which are 6 inches as per standard so far. You place the terrain as indicated on the battlefield. Nighthaunt player gets the first turn. And the victory condition is the player who controls the most objectives at the end of the game is victorious. Players control the objectives by having more models than 3 inches of the center of its center than their opponent does. So that's cool. Random thing that just thought of and is worth noting: if you've got smaller bases, such as the Nighthaunts do, you can get more models in. If you've got larger bases, you tend to be able to kill more people, so you can drive more models out. But there you go. Okay, so let's see. Next week, we've got the fantastic Dominion of Sigmar statue, which is big, bad, and looking cool. They're explaining the Great Horned Rat, who is kind of Slanish's sub at the moment in terms of being a Chaos God, but I don't know if he's that powerful. He's more equivalent to Sigmar in his level of power, and I don't think he can stand up to Slaanesh, but there you go. Next, you've got issue 35 with some more reinforcements for the Stormcasts. You've got Liberators and Prosecutors, so another winged guy with a hammer and 4 more standing guys. Painting your new models, new War Scrolls and battle plans for issue 35. So that's what's coming next week, guys. Anna couldn't be here today because she's not feeling it. She will be here for the Wednesday one, she says. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week.